Welcome back to One on One with Mr. U. I'm your host, of course, Mr. U. In studio today is Danny Brassell. He is known to be a lot of things. I think they call him Jim Carrey with a PhD. I love it. We had an awesome conversation. I want to clue you guys into who Danny is, man. You're going to enjoy this guy, man. But Danny, thanks for joining us today, man. How you doing where you are today, brother? How's things? Weather-wise, everything good?
Oh, no, everything's great. Thanks so much for having me, Mr. U. I just love your energy. You keep it up.
My pleasure, my pleasure. I'm glad I can keep it up, man. But let's talk. Everybody that watches our show, they kind of know what we do. We just have candid conversations. Some awesome stuff comes out of it almost every single time. But where's Danny from? Tell us about Danny off the pages. Who's Danny? Childhood and everything. Talk about you a little bit, man.
Well, if I was going to write an autobiography, Mr. U, I'd call it Pivots, because my life has gone all kinds of different directions.
I like it.
30 years ago, I was a journalist. I got to cover President Bush Sr. in the 1992 presidential election. I loved being a journalist and got to meet all kinds of cool people. I had an editor of a major daily offer me the City Beat for $16,500 a year. And then told me they were hiring teachers in South Central Los Angeles for $25,000 a year. So I became a teacher for the noblest of reasons, for the high pay. And I taught in Compton and Watts for many years. Absolutely loved it. And then in 2005, my wife and I attended a real estate seminar, which turned out to be a scam, and we lost everything. I could focus on all the negatives, but I'm a positive person. First of all, my wife is my soulmate. I put her through the ringer, and she stuck right by me. She's an incredible human being. Second of all, I learned that Second thing I learned is money's not the end all be all, because you can lose it just like that. Third, I try not to judge other people, because if I was somebody who saw what I did, I'd say, well, you deserve that. But now I realize if you don't really know everything about a person, you don't know anything about a person. Fourth, I became a Christian, which I'm always embarrassed to admit, but the more I read the Bible, I'm not the first screw up to find Jesus. And fifth, in order to avoid filing for bankruptcy, my accountant told me I had to make this much more money every single year. And so I started speaking on the side. And so I hit the number right on the number. Well, so then the next year, Mr. U, he gave me a much higher number, and I hit that number right on the number. So in year 3, I thought, well, maybe I should set a higher number. And basically during one of the economic downturns in American history, I was able to build up a very lucrative speaking business, which was rolling great. And then in 2020, a thing called COVID hit, and people asked me, how's the speaking going? I'm like, great. I just lost 200 speaking engagements overnight because they shut down the world. It's great. Well, for years, people have been encouraging me to coach them, and I always resisted, Mr. U, because I've always had a very high standard for my students. I actually will not let you fail. I stick on you until you succeed. Well, working primarily with entrepreneurs and executives has been a real blessing, because I find that these people are highly motivated. And now I built up a really successful coaching practice with my my co-partner, Coach Jimmy Hayes Nelson. We're having a great time, and I love it. I get to meet people like you every day now.
Yeah, man. The pleasure's mine, man. I love somebody who loves what they're doing. People talk about that kind of stuff they have in recent years, but it always kind of rang hollow to me. But in this community that we're a part of together, meeting folks that actually really legitimately, authentically enjoy what they're doing, I'll tell you right now, all you guys that are listening, you don't know what this is like. This is rarefied air for somebody who enjoys what they're actually doing. So this is a really good thing. But we're talking a little bit about where you are geographically. You're in Colorado, and honestly, I actually thought about Colorado so many times. My wife would laugh if she would hear this right now. That part notwithstanding, I thought about the living in Colorado. I'm like, okay, so tell me what's a one pro and one con about the area where you are. Well, just in Colorado, generally speaking, what's one pro living there and one con for living there?
I live in Denver. I love Denver. I guess the pro is we get to hike all the time. And Colorado was great during, I spoke in Florida one week and nobody was wearing a mask. And then I spoke in California the next week and people were wearing full body armor. I'm like, there is a happy medium here. And Colorado was pretty sensible. People were respectful of one another. I guess the con is here it is the end of March and we've had 70-degree weather, and next week I'm sure we'll have a snowstorm. That's probably the con.
Wow. but you guys do have 4 seasons, or do you have 3.5? What's going on out there?
I don't know. We have like 7 seasons within the course of a day.
I might have you name them 7 seasons. How is that possible? All right, that's crazy. But you, like I said, you're a highly successful man. I mean, you're sought after as a speaker, a trainer, you're a coach. You authored 19 books, which I think is astounding. I authored 1 book, and I'm like overwhelmed by that. but share for us, those that are listening, kind of the work that you started in South Central LA. Kind of, how did that start, and what did you learn from it? Yeah.
So the coaching, well, basically, Coach Jimmy and I, what we tell people is we empower leaders to transform their personal experiences into powerful business stories that inspire action, drive growth, and create lasting impact. Basically, we call it a well-crafted story. When I covered the president many years ago, he called his stump speech. I've heard superhero movies, they call it the origin story. You can call it peanut butter and jelly. This is basically a presentation that you're going to deliver again and again to introduce yourself to new audiences. And the only way we judge the impact of your presentation is, does your audience choose to take the next step with you? And it could be, it could be like an unpaid offer, like, hey, subscribe to my podcast or book a free phone call. It can be a paid offer, like buy my product or invest in my coaching program. But we only look at our success based on, are we actually moving the needle? So we had a gentleman, Richard, we worked with a few months ago, a financial advisor, very successful. And he used to begin his presentations. He'd say, hi, I'm Richard. I've been in the business for 30 years. I've made my clients over $1 billion. I've worked with this famous person and this famous person. And I said, stop, Richard. What are the 3 most important things about real estate? Location, location, location. It's all right to brag, but you're doing it in the wrong part of your presentation. And so we changed his presentation. So now at the very beginning of his talk, he talks about the very first client he ever booked like 30 years ago. And like, it's a comedy of errors. He made one mistake after another. I can't believe this person even gave him a dime, let alone their life savings. And this was the interesting thing, Mr. Yu. So Richard, he does these things twice a week, like at steak restaurants, where he gets like 15 couples in their 50s, gives them a free steak meal and talks about how they should invest their money with him. And he said that before his old presentation, out of the 15 people, maybe 6 people would actually book a call to find out more with him. And he noticed that the husband always had his arms crossed, like, what's this guy trying to sell me? Well, now that he's changed his story into his comedy of errors, he said the same guy is now patting his knee on and just laughing hysterically. And he said he upped his number of phone calls from, instead of 6 out of 15, he's getting now 12 out of 15. So we actually were able to double his results. And so that's really how we always approach our ideal clients. We say, well, what's the cost? What's your return on investment? What does a new customer bring you?
Okay.
So, if a guy, Richard, he deals with high net worth individuals that are investing at least $3 million with him, and he makes 1.5%. So I'm like, well, I'm not a math major, but our fees, all we have to do is get you 1 client, and you've more than been able to get your return on investment. If we get you 2, now you're making money off of us. And so that's really what we do with people. It depends. Like if we're working with pastors, we rate it like, well, are we able to get more tithes for your church or your synagogue or whatever?
Makes sense.
What's that?
That makes sense. I want to talk about your clients. I want to talk about your non-traditional clients.
Yeah,
the ones that you started in South Central LA. Those are the ones I want to talk about. So let's talk about those folks. The folks that you were starting, I guess your career with in South Central.
Yeah, well, that was the best. It was kind of funny because I had a mastermind I was in many years ago, and one of the guys in my mastermind really changed my mindset. He's a very successful salesman. His company's worth like $100 million, and he wanted me to train his sales force. And I'm like, well, I don't know if I can do that because I'm just like a teacher from South Central. I've never really trained salespeople. And he looked at me like I was an idiot. He's like, hey, Danny, if you can get teenage boys in South Central to read Shakespeare, I'm pretty sure you can motivate my sales force. I'm like, oh, you got me expanding my possibilities. And I loved I loved teaching and I've taught all age levels from preschool all the way up to rocket scientist. I can always say, because I used to teach English as a second language at the University of Southern California to engineering students.
Okay.
So I've had lots of fun with the great thing. I actually love the little ones the best, because I always call kindergarten New York, New York. If you can make it there, you can make it anywhere, because they have about a 7-minute attention span, and they keep
sure.
You got to be interesting and engaging to keep their attention.
Give us one great story. I know that you referenced Stand and Deliver as kind of the movie that kind of either sparked or reminded you of your experience. To give me one great story that came out of your teaching the kids in South Central. I know that there's a stigma. There always was regarding that area, educationally and in every other way, financially, you name it, even racially. So tell us why. Give us a great story about how you evolved, how you grew from that, what you saw in the kids, what you saw in the whole system because of what you helped to initiate.
Well, that's a really good question, Mr. Yu. Well, I mean, like, I went there like I was the Great White Hope, and I was going to help. Most of my students were Hispanic and
I didn't want to say that.
Yeah,
I'm glad you said that.
I went there thinking I was there to save the day, and the kids saved me. I learned so much. I mean, I love the little ones the best because they say things that are great. I mean, one day I'm teaching, and LaShonda raises her hand. I'm like, LaShonda, question. She's like, Mr. Brassell, when are you gonna trim your nose hair? I'm like, this afternoon. Thanks for bringing that to me.
Oh wow.
I ain't all that. So I learned. I take my job seriously. I don't take myself seriously, because I ain't all that, and neither are you. And if you think you're all that, teach kindergarten for a week. So I love the little ones. Like, I work with kids. I always ask for. I want to be like Ellis Island. I want the huddled masses that nobody else wants to teach. I mean, I used to sing a lot with the kids. We play a lot of games. It's fun working with kids because they're all different, and I'm always trying to figure out what's the motivation for this kid. And I love getting the kids excited about reading. That's actually why I started writing my books. When I was teaching middle school, I was the only teacher at the school that none of my students ever showed up tardy, because I always started off class, I'd read aloud a Paul Harvey story. I don't know if you remember Paul Harvey, Mr.
I do.
Okay. Means we're both old. He died a couple of years ago at the age of 325 years old. But I grew up listening to Paul Harvey on the radio. He'd be like, I'm Paul Harvey with the rest of the story. And for 5 minutes, he's telling you a story, and you're trying to guess who's he talking about or what's the company. But the problem with the Paul Harvey stories is a lot of them are like of Sears Roebuck. Well, kids today don't know what Sears Roebuck is. No. And so so I wrote a book called Leadership Begins with Motivation, which was an homage to Paul Harvey. But the stories I included were people like Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and people like that. And then after I read it, and it was interesting, because completely unintentionally, so many of my examples were of white male Americans. And so the last book I just wrote is called Misfits and Crackpots. And stories in this book are primarily minorities, women, and international people, because kids need to see. I mean, and don't get me wrong. I mean, I don't think race and gender are everything, but they are something. And I think it's important that kids get to see themselves. I mean, it's kind of like you, Mr. You have a huge responsibility. I mean, I had so many little African-American boys in Compton that you're their role model. Like, they're looking up to you. Hey, maybe I can have a podcast someday. Maybe I can be just like
absolutely.
him. I mean, and again, I'm not saying race and gender are everything, but they are something. And I mean, no matter what I did, I wasn't from Compton. I was a white dude. And actually, really one of my probably the most basic goal was I wanted to be a decent role model for the kids. I'm like, I want them to at least associate one white dude as not being a jerk. I mean, because I saw, you're asking about the system and stuff, and I'm like, man, the system, it drives you crazy. And you see, like,
I can imagine
challenges the kids face, and I'm like, man, this is not a fair game. And well, I'll get off my soapbox, but I mean,
that's okay.
We have to do a lot more. We have a lot of improvement we need.
Oh, absolutely. I appreciate that. I was really inspired by the story that you shared in our pre-production meeting about, just teaching them and how you reach them. I mean, because it feels like it's a lost art to even consider thinking about reaching the unreachable and teaching the unteachable. There's a few of us that that really glorify it, but and glamorize it. But honestly, we have the opportunity to do that in a lot of different ways in every area of our life, and we don't do it. So I'm inspired by the fact that you did that in South Central of all places. Please share the story about your growing up in the 18 different schools and the Indian boy. That story right there was amazing. I think they'd love to hear this.
Well, first of all, that's the other thing I always tell people. My kids are kids. So that really annoyed. I hate it. Like when the movie Dangerous Minds came out, I was so annoyed because it's based on a book by Louann Johnson called My Posse Don't Do Homework. But Hollywood had to change the name to Dangerous Minds because they're in the inner city. I'm like, they are kids, man. Like that stuff drives me nuts. Anyway, I'll get off on that. So back at the story you're referring to, in 2018, I was traveling to all these different schools in India, and I started speaking at some schools, and I got all the kids pumped up at this one school, and kids are coming up to me afterwards like, oh, you inspire me and everything. And then all of a sudden I see this 6-year-old boy, and he's got tears in his eyes, and I notice he's missing his left arm, and he looks up at me and he's like, how can I succeed? And so I crouched down to his eye level, and I say, when I was your age, I went to 18 different schools before I was 12 years old. I mean, everybody called me stupid because I stuttered. And eventually I went to a school, and a teacher, she worked one-on-one with me, and she would sing things to me, and I found I could sing them back without my stutter, kind of like the movie The King's Speech. And eventually I lost my stutter and I became a swan. But I looked at that boy in the eye. I'm like, isn't it interesting that the little boy everybody used to say was stupid because he couldn't talk right now gets paid ridiculous sums of money to travel the world to do what? And he gets this big grin on his face. He's like, speak. I'm like, don't let anybody ever tell you what you can't do. And that's really, that's the message I've always given to my students is I'm like, hey, sometimes you need somebody else to believe in you before you believe in yourself. I believe in all of you. They only give me the best and the brightest. Let's go out and make this world a better place. I mean, I became a teacher because Oprah had a teacher. I'm like, wow, I have the power to inspire the next Oprah or the next Supreme Court justice or the next really good parent. And it was either the Bible or Uncle Ben and Spider-Man who said, with great power comes great
responsibility. I love that, man. That's amazing, man. You referenced your book, Misfits and Crackpots. I want to talk to you about one of the goals that I happened to cross that you had for women and minorities being on more stages. Can you talk to me about why you feel like that's important? And I definitely have both women and minorities in my listenership, so they'll benefit from this. But share why you had a goal for them to be on more stages, what inspired that dream, and why you think it's important.
Yeah, so like I said before, first of all, it's really important for the next generation to see themselves in others, and so we need a lot more minorities and women on stages because, I mean, it just isn't happening right now. And I mean, this is coming from a white dude, but I'm like, I lived a very blessed life, a charmed life, but more importantly, this is a point I make to people. It's really important for people like me to see more minorities and women on stages. I think a lot of the problems in our society is people think they're different. I'm like, they're not that different. You just have to kind of get used to one another. I mean, spending so many years teaching in the hood, my buddies started giving me a hard time. They're like, Danny, you're starting to sound like a black woman, because I taught with primarily. And it was funny because you start hanging out with people, you start to have their speaking patterns and everything. And I'm like, gosh, because I'd be like, man, that kid needs an attitude adjustment. You know what I'm saying? And people are like, man, you sound like a. It cracked me up. I told that to my colleagues. They all laughed at me. And I want us to be able to laugh about it. I just think that, that's why it's such a service that you have this podcast. Is you have no idea who's watching this, Mr. You. It could be
that's true.
It could be some kid in Nigeria that's like, wow, maybe I'll go to America and have a podcast like Mr. You. It could be a kid in Harlem. It could be a kid in Keokuk, Iowa. I mean, I just think it's an important service. And so I think it's twofold. I think I think it's important that little girls and minority children are able to see role models that look like them. That's one part of it. But then the other part of it is, I think, white people also have to see it. So they're like, wait a second. Well, this person, wow, Mr. U's a Giants fan. I'm a Giants fan. Maybe we ain't so different. Maybe we can talk football, if nothing else. I mean, I'm pretty good at figuring out where the common ground is with anybody. I'm like, oh, well, here's something we can talk about.
Okay. Oh, I like that. I like that. I love this. I'm kind of infatuated with some of the things I want to stay here the entire episode. So my last question about South Central, I just find it so amazing. But I believe that there's you got some key lessons just from hearing you talk. You got some key lessons from the classroom that you thought were very valuable in the world of business. Help flesh that out for us, because a lot of times, and this is just my personal assessment, I've been a coach, I've been a mentor, trainer, I've done all that kind of stuff with the government and for myself in business. And I realized that people have been given keys all their life. They just don't realize it. They've had keys their entire life from a young child to an adult. And they got a treasure chest full of keys and access and resources. And they're like, how do I solve this problem? Like, it's right there. You already learned that it's there. So it's not, we're all looking for something that's new, something that's unopened, but we already have access to so much. What kind of lessons from the classroom can you, I guess, translate to the business world, in your opinion, from what you've seen?
Yeah, so probably one of the best ones, Mr. U, is don't disregard other people's input. You have no idea how everybody looks at the world in totally different ways. And I'm always amazed. That's why I love teaching the little ones, because the two greatest questions I've ever been asked by human beings were asked by I had Maria, 5 years old, raised her hand one day shyly, and she's like, Mr. Brassell, where does it say Humpty Dumpty's an egg? And I laugh. I start looking at the book and I'm like, it doesn't. Nowhere in that nursery rhyme does it say Humpty Dumpty's an egg, but there's always a picture of an egg. How did I miss that all those times? Tyrell, 6 years old.
That's incredible. Yeah.
Tyrell one day, 6 years old, raised his hand. He's like, Mr. Brassell, is Curious George a monkey or an ape? And I laughed until I reread the book. Now, if you ever read Curious George, what does the man in the yellow hat always call Curious George? My little monkey. Where's his tail? Curious George doesn't have a tail because he ain't a monkey. He's a chimpanzee. I've read that book 3,000 times, missed that every single time. Tyrell got it the very first time. That's why if I'm ever murdered, I want a first grader on the scene, not my wife. A first grader would be like, he's approximately 6 feet tall, dark jacket, dark pants. My wife would be like, I don't know, I think he's this tall. I think he's white. Like, what kids taught me is everybody looks at the world in totally different ways. And I don't have to agree with a person. But I do have to listen to other people. And sometimes I'll disagree with a person initially, but the more I think about their point of view, I'm like, I think that point of view is actually correct. And it's the problem I see in America right now. People just jump on each other. I'm like, I think we have to hang out with people we're uncomfortable hanging out with. We have to be around people that are different than us, because they're not so different and they're not as crazy as you think. And so the business lesson is, just because you have an intern that's only been working for you for 3 weeks and they give you an idea, don't discount that idea. That might be the best idea anybody's had. That's probably the most applicable thing I've learned in business. The other thing I learned in school that any good business leader should understand is everybody has different motivation. You have to understand how to run the different elements of your team, because they're all a little bit different. Some respond to the carrot, some respond to the stick. But there's a way where there's a will, there's a way. I mean, I used to volunteer at a juvenile detention facility for teenage girls, and they told me, oh, there's no way you're going to get these girls reading. Man, Mr. U, it took me a week. I got them reading in the back of Us magazine. There's this thing called the Fashion Police, where comedians rip on celebrity outfits. These girls couldn't get enough of that. Every week they were just laughing and reading that. That's the starting point. When I had to take, I taught 8th grade special education, which was not special education. It was 16 boys that nobody else wanted to teach. 8 African-American, 8 Latino. If their life wasn't miserable enough, they got stuck with the white dude as the teacher. And I was supposed to teach them Shakespeare. 14-year-old boys ain't interested in Romeo and Juliet. And so what I did
Sure.
is, there's a great author from South Central called Walter Mosley. He's got this great book called Always Outnumbered, Always Outgunned. And so we read that first. And so then when we were reading Romeo and Juliet, I'm like, you see that, guys? These are two gangs. The Montagues and the Capulets, those are two gangs. And this is their street talk, is this fancy language. That's their street talk. And the guy's like, oh, and then you just have to make that, you figure out where people are at and teach them from there. And that's the same thing in business is, I love the movie Hoosiers. At the very first scene, Gene Hackman is, he has his basketball team and he's like, let's see what I got. And that's exactly right. What do I got? Let's figure out the strengths of everybody on my team. Let's figure out how to get them to work together.
Yeah, you're obviously a great teacher, man. I love this. What you're also doing is you're teaching people how to conquer what may be the number one fear in the entire globe, and that's the fear of public speaking. So tell me what kind of sparked the desire for you to do that, especially with, even beyond what you were dealing with as a young child. What sparked the desire to do this? Because most folks, they only want to do it when they absolutely have to. I worked in government as in management, and I've seen times where people had to give a small presentation. I'm talking about nothing major, not even about themselves, about something off of a paper. And they were like 40, 50, even 60 years old working for the government and dropped that ball like it was on fire.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a challenge for people still to this day, and it transcends generations. Mm-hmm. What sparked the desire for you to not only do it, but to teach this on this level?
Well, the desire was based out of financial necessity because of COVID. That's why I started coaching. But what I love,
fair enough.
I think what makes me a little bit different than a lot of people that coach people speaking is I want you to have fun. I mean, most people are freaking out. I'm like, hey, even if you have to give a 5-minute presentation, heck, it's only 5 minutes. Even if it sucks, it was only 5 minutes. But there's three things I'm a little bit different with than most people. I mean, first of all, I see a lot of coaches, they teach people, talk about something really tragic that happened in your life. And I don't teach it that way and there's three reasons why. First, I mean, the world just survived a global pandemic. Everybody has had bad stuff happen to them. I don't think we need more sad stories. I think we need more stories. Sure. Second of all, what I'm teaching you to do is we're creating Jimmy and I teach people how to create a well-crafted story. This is a speech you're going to deliver again and again. Well, I hope you're having fun delivering that speech. I don't want you talking about a tragic moment. I mean, we have a friend, his daughter died in a school shooting. He's delivered that speech over 1,000 times. I'm like, man, you got to be a lot stronger than me to talk about the worst day of your life again and again. I don't know how he does that. And third, and this is where people get angry with me, I have one objective when I'm on stage. I want you to leave feeling better than when you came in. I want you laughing, smiling, happy. I think there's something admirable about that being my objective. I believe these people that tell the same sad story again and again, by the 20th time they're telling it, now those are crocodile tears, and now you're being manipulative. And I'm not saying it's not an effective sales strategy. It's a very effective sales strategy, but it's unethical.
I hear you.
And, I mean, I personally don't want to have to take a shower after I get off stage because I just manipulated my audience. There's a better way to do things than that. So that's
no, I like that. Yeah,
I mean, I want you having fun. Most of the I'll say 80% of the people I work with, they have horrible stage fright. I was working with an engineer from Silicon Valley, an Indian guy. And let's just say engineers are pretty introverted. And he was very worried. He's like, oh, Denny, you have to make me interesting, make me funny. And so he's a very difficult name to pronounce. I'm not going to give you his real name, but his name. So now he's
don't bother.
Now we have him start off his presentation. He's like, hello, my name is Shubunakar Majahardin. Gee, I sure hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And what it does is it gets the audience just to smile and say, oh, this guy can make, most of us just need to make fun of ourselves. So I love inserting humor into presentations because I just think everybody's way too uptight. And I want you comfortable on stage. So that's really one of the driving forces when I'm working with people is we're going to make this fun because you got to deliver it again. I mean, and it's the reps that there's two ways you get better at speaking. I mean, first of all, you got to watch lots of speakers. I mean, I watch 10 speakers a day. I watch politicians. I watch comedians. I watch televangelists. I watch them in front of big groups, in front of small groups, in front of men, in front of women. Here, I'll give your audience a ninja strategy I share with my clients. I watch a lot of televised award shows because when the person wins the Academy Award, they only have 45 seconds to connect with their audience. Now, most people waste their time. They get up there and they're like, I want to thank God. I want to thank the Academy. It's stupid. Nobody pays attention. Every now and then, somebody does a great job. So a couple of years ago, there's this guy named Joe Walker. He won the Academy Award for Best Film Editing. Now, this is Hollywood. The important people are in the audience, the actors. And you can see when he's going on stage, nobody's paying attention. And he gets on there. He's British, and he speaks very distinctly. He's like, a lot of people don't know this, but when phrased properly, the term Academy Award nominee can be used as an insult. Well, now the camera pans the audience. You see people kind of leaning in like, what's he talking about? And he goes on. He's like, for example, yesterday I got in an argument with my 17-year-old daughter, and she said, well, Academy Award nominee Joe Walker. All of a sudden, you see everybody laughing hysterically. He gets off stage. Denzel Washington wants to meet him. Sandra Bullock wants to meet him. Brad Pitt wants to meet him. Time magazine said he was the highlight of the Academy Awards. That's the power of connecting with an audience, giving it.
I love that.
Yeah. The second way you get better at speaking, one of my mentors was a guy named Jim Rohn, and Jim used to say you can't pay other people to do your push-ups. Translation.
I love this work.
You got to do the work. You got to do the reps. I mean, you go like, even the smallest towns in America have a Lions Club, an Optimist Club, a Kiwanis Club. Go speak there. Go speak to churches, synagogues, temples, schools, chambers of commerce. Look at your podcast. This is what I always tell. I guarantee you, Mr. You, the first time you did this podcast, you sucked. And the second time you did the podcast, you sucked. But you didn't suck as bad as the first time. I thought
it was pretty good the second time around. No.
Wow. Dude. You perfection from the very beginning, and now like this is like a well-oiled machine. You got no problem. I mean, you're on the podcast. It's like hanging out with an old friend all the time, and it's because of the familiarity. You're comfortable now because you've done it. This goes back to why we need lots of different speakers of different backgrounds, because the more you see people, the more you start to be comfortable with those people. Oh, okay, this is I just think that's really important.
Okay, so I love all of this. This is fantastic. I can tell we run out of time, so now I'm pressing now. So now I'm going to hold you to do what you just talk about Joe Walker doing. You have to do that for the rest of the episode, so I get all the rest of these questions in.
Okay,
but
all right,
if possible. If not, I understand. A lot of our listeners, they do content creations, they're podcasters, they're innovative in some way, shape, or form, entrepreneurs. Kind of see it. Can you craft a strategy to help them do what they do, even though it's not on a proverbial stage, so to speak, on a stage of a different kind? Can you craft a strategy for them if they're listening right now to what you were saying? Could you?
Of course, the formula. The formula that Coach Jimmy and I take you through, it's applicable. You can do it on a 1-hour ballroom keynote, or you can do it on a 30-second elevator pitch, or you can do it on your podcast. And as a thank you to have me on today, I wanted to give you and your audience some freebies. So if you go to freestoryguide.com, again, freestoryguide.com, like a tour guide, I'm going to provide everybody their own storytelling blueprint. What this is a blueprint which shows you how to create your own well-crafted story. What this does for you is it takes the guesswork out of what works most effectively on my podcast or on my pitch to investors or on my speech. It takes the guesswork out to show you exactly what you need to do. And what this means for you is the peace of mind that, hey, I can get my audience to take that next step. And again, whatever that next step may be, that's at freestoryguide.com.
Oh, thank you, Dan. I appreciate that. I hope everybody's listening to that freestoryguide.com. I know a lot of people are not trying to aspire to be a public speaker, but we have opportunities. I know people who are a good friend of mine. They are in management with the government. They interview people. They hire people. Some people do podcasts and trying to do that for a living. There's so many different areas where speaking still matters. And people don't think about trying to perfect it. So freestoryguide.com, great way to get that done. Thank you for the free gift. Hope you guys are listening live on the replay when it comes through. freestoryguide.com. Pretty awesome stuff. I like it. Flesh out the idea for me of, and I love this idea, by the way, but flesh out where it comes from, how you apply it. Never giving people answers, but teaching people strategies.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was on a podcast earlier today, and the guy asked me for some tips. I'm like, well, I give waiters tips. I give my clients practical strategies that they can use. Everybody needs strategies. Here, I'll give you. Here's a strategy for everybody out there that wants to be a better speaker. I want you to sit in a comfortable chair for an hour with a pen and paper and a libation of choice. And I want you to just write down every story that's ever happened to you. And I don't mean the entire story. I just mean triggers, like the time I locked myself out of the car in front of Costco, the time Dad spilt mustard on his tie when we went to that fancy restaurant. You'll find in like an hour, you'll come up with about 500 stories, triggers like this. That's the first part of the exercise. The second part of the exercise is now I want you to look at each story and figure out, what's this story really about? Oh, this is a story about never giving up. Oh, this is a story about transparency. Oh, this is a story about loyalty. And so literally on my computer, I have hundreds of files of characteristics like that, with literally thousands, if not tens of thousands of stories like that. So when I have to speak at different events and I need a story that meets I need a story to get my audience to do a specific thing, then I have different, I'll show you a way of doing this. So I like to use a lot of stories from my teaching background. I always tell people, kids is always great. So when I was an elementary school teacher, every other teacher at my school went through hundreds, if not thousands, of Band-Aids every single school year. I mean, kids love Band-Aids. They work better than smokes on the prison yard. Well, every single year I went through exactly one Band-Aid, and my colleagues always asked me, what's your secret? Well, on the first day of school, I always have at least one chubby little boy. We'll call him Paco. And he's picking at a scab all morning long, finally has success after lunch. And the annoying little girl next to him raises her hand, rubs her nose, and says, Mr. Brassell, Paco is bleeding. I'm like, oh my gosh, Paco, you know what you need? You need a Band-Aid. Now I have 33 little heads looking at me. I'm like, I got a drawer full of Band-Aids in my desk, and I don't have just ordinary Band-Aids. I have Mighty Morphin Power Ranger Band-Aids, and I'm going to give you the Green Ranger because he's the coolest. Now Paco's smiling, all the kids are grinning. I take Paco to my desk. I say, oh, before I put on the Band-Aid, we got to clean out the wound. So I show the class the bottle of rubbing alcohol. I say, hey, Paco, hold on to my hand. This might.
Paco ain't ready for this part.
I start pulling on the rubbing alcohol. He screams bloody murder. I put on the Band-Aid. I'm like, great. Anybody else need a Band-Aid? My kids can have a skull fracture, and they will never ask for it. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not going to give you Band-Aids today. I'm going to give you practical strategies on how to create a well-crafted story that'll get your audience to become clients. So you see how I took the story and I turned it into a business.
I see it. You made a crash test dummy out of Paco. I see it. But okay, so I totally understand though. One thing that I got a few more questions that hopefully I can get them in, but one thing that I think, and I know it's strictly important to me, but I know it's important to some of our listeners who, like I said, they're building some things and it requires creativity and innovation and things of that nature, whether it be small business owners, entrepreneurs, they're all here listening to us or will be when the replay comes around. But you use the term authentic connection a lot. And I use it too. It's not a word. It's not in my vernacular. It is. But how do you define authentic connection? What's the technique to kind of achieve that with any audience, no matter who's listening? Because I need to understand that all of our friends that are podcasters, entrepreneurs, companies and investors, content creators, we all are trying to engage with somebody. So define authentic connection. How do we achieve that?
Yeah, so Brene Brown, who's a wonderful speaker, she talks about vulnerability. I completely agree with her on this point. And so here's the strategy for everybody listening. Stop telling your audience about your successes. Start telling them about your failures, because not everybody in your audience has succeeded, but they've all failed. And the more you talk about your own failures, the more they're going to see themselves in you. Coach Jimmy calls it the three gottas at the beginning of a presentation. You got to show the audience you're just like them. You got to show the audience that you solved the problem that they're currently struggling with, and you got to show them why it matters. If you can answer those three questions, you're going to do a great job of connecting with your audience.
No, I love that. I love that. If somebody wants to gain favor with Danny Brassell, what kind of food item would they bring him?
Food item? I mean, I love fried chicken and potato salad. It's actually I love fried chicken. It's pathetic.
I never would have guessed this. Okay, fried chicken. So if the missus brings you fried chicken and potato salad, you know some the game's afoot.
Right, absolutely. Since she's a vegan and she never lets me eat that kind of thing.
Ooh, well, Pandora's box is just how it looks. I love this. If you were not doing public speaking or teaching, what would Danny Brassell be doing?
I would love to be a music composer, like for films, like Hans Zimmer or John Williams. I would love to do that.
Why, sir? Explain that. Why?
Well, first of all, when I'm writing, that's what I listen to. I listen to movie soundtracks because I'm a geek. But second of all, I always tell people, I'm like, watch movies without good music. I mean, like E.T. is a good movie, but if you take off the soundtrack, there's no way you'd watch that. The soundtrack is everything. Star Wars, watch Star Wars. John Williams is incredible at the scoring. Alexander Desplat, you watch Grand Budapest Hotel. The music makes everything. So I absolutely, I have no skill at that, by the way, but that would be the one skill I would love.
Well, I guess I'm a geek too. I'm in the geek club too because I had 2 soundtracks, 2 scores that I grew up listening to on loop. I have these are albums now, so I have no idea how I got here. But Batman and the Untouchables.
Oh, there you go.
I played it constantly. I have no idea where that came from. Yeah. What kind of sicko I was building out there back in New York City, but it's funny. Yeah. I watched one of your TED Talks, and this will be one of my last questions for you. The reading makeover. I'd love to hear what you learned yourself from that TED Talk. The reading makeover. That was so awesome. What did you learn?
Well, thank you for that. I actually learned a valuable lesson because the day before I was in a speaking competition and I only had 10 minutes to give a speech. So when I gave my TED Talk, 18 minutes felt like eternity after doing 10 minutes. But I was once at an event and I was sitting next to a pretty famous athlete. And the conference organizer, she saw him and she invited him up on stage. She's like, tell us what you've been doing. You got 7 minutes. And that was really an important moment for me, Mr. Yu. It taught me I need to have a 1-hour version of my talk. I need a 45-minute version, a 30-minute, a 15, a 7-minute, a 3-minute, a 30-second, because you never know when some stranger will ask you to speak to 1,000 people about what you're up to. So that was a very important lesson. So the TED Talk, I think the most beneficial thing to me about it drives me nuts because the TED Talk is a really good talk and they wired me for sound for the auditorium, but not for the camera. And so it's not the best sound. It really drives me nuts. But yeah, what I learned the most from the TED Talk is how to create different lengths of my speech.
I love that, man. You are definitely a fascinating guy, man. Love to ask you to offer 3 tips to everybody that's listening. Of course, even as the host, I don't know everybody that's listening, where they come from, who they are, what they do, what they don't do as a profession, what they aspire to do in life. I have no clue, except for a few indicators, a little bit of evidence. But give out 3 tips, if you don't mind, 3 pieces of advice from you that you think would benefit this audience in particular. And then we'll go ahead and close out for the day.
Wow, that's tough. So the first one, no matter what, is never give up. Second of all would be never let anybody define you. You have the ability to define yourself.
Ooh, I like that.
And the third one would be aim high.
Aim high.
Yeah.
I love it, man. Good stuff, man. Danny Brassell, ladies and gentlemen. What we're going to do is after the show, maybe in about an hour or so after the show has been produced, we'll go ahead and have Danny jump into the live chat in the, I should say the comment section, our YouTube channel. Share that link, freestoryguide.com, in case you missed it again, freestoryguide.com. I'm an advertiser. I'm advertising for this thing. It's crazy. But I'm gonna have Danny go in and put in his information. So if you guys want to reach out to him, maybe perhaps his services will be helpful for you in your industry, where you are in your profession, and he'll have that in the YouTube comments under the episode on our channel. So Danny, thank you again for joining us. This has been fantastic. I hope it's not the last time we see each other again, but we're part of the same community, and I'm grateful for you, man. This was a fantastic episode today. Thank you again. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you for all you do, Mr. U. And you and I will be talking football right after this.
You know it, baby. Let's go. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks again for listening and for watching us. And please like, share, and subscribe on our YouTube channel at youtube.com at They Call Me Mr. U. Have a great day. Thanks.